Good morning, students. Today we are going to summarize the poem When I Set Out for Lyonnesse. So, first, you have to know about the term Lyonnesse. So, Lyonnesse is an imaginary place. So, it's a mythical birthplace of Sir Tristram, which is situated in southwest England and it is believed to have been submerged by the sea. So the poet is very famous. I think all of you have heard the name of the poet Thomas Hardy. Actually, he is very much famous for his novels. But here we will come to know about the poet Thomas Hardy. Okay. So before going to the poem, I would like to say some words on this poem. That is, if I have to summarize this poem, it will be very short. But the actual message in this poem is that apart from this material world, there is also another spiritual world which we can realize only. That means the spiritual world cannot be touched, but it can be realized. So in this poem, the poet went to a place to supervise some work, but when he returned from the place, he experienced something which is very extraordinary. Right? So it's a kind of spiritual experience which changed him a lot. So let's come to the poem. When I set out for Lyonnesse, 100 miles away, the rime was on the spray, and starlight lit my lonesomeness. When I set out for Lyonnesse, 100 miles away, what would be chance at Lyonnesse while I should sojourn there? No prophet durst declare, nor did the wisest wizard guess. What would be chance at Lyonnesse while I should sojourn there? When I came back from Lyonnesse with magic in my eyes, all marked with mute surmise, my radiance rare and fathomless. When I came back from Lyonnesse with magic in my eyes. So this poem is all about a young novice architect, which is a poet himself. So one day it happened that his works take him to a parish. The church is being restored, so the poet is the one who has to supervise this procedure. The poem also tells us about the experience which he goes through during this process. So further, it states that after his return, something inside him changes. It is not just the poet who can notice this, but everyone around him also notices the change in him. People start noticing a new glow in his eyes. Moreover, there was a piece of paper that is sticking out of his pocket. The paper contains a draft of a poem. So, in this way, the poem tells us how a single visit brings so many changes in the poet's life. He feels that it's a kind of a new experience for him, and he has never felt like this before. So the poet leaves for the parish on a cold evening. It was a hundred. It was around 100 miles away, and the path was all covered in frost. So it was a lonely path, and the stars were his only companion. Moreover, they help in guiding him the way. That means the stars help him. The the stars help him to trace the path while he was walking. So, in order to supervise the whole process, the poet stays at the parish for a little while. So, the poet is not aware that he is going to have a life changing experience at the parish. However, during that short period of time, he notices some changes happening. So in the second stanza also, he's saying that no prophet does declare, nor did the wisest wizard guess. That means the change is so awesome, the change is so extraordinary that no prophet could announce before, or even the magician cannot declare. So what change is going to take place in the life of the poet? So when he returned from the place, there was a piece of paper, that is the draft of the poem, and everyone surrounding him experienced that there was a glow in his eyes. So if you can understand that the gist of the poem is very short, but the actual thing is that the poet has a kind of spiritual experience, spiritual enlightenment. So the poem is a very insightful piece of work, and it tells us that when we have some A plan, God has some B plan. So something extraordinary may happen anytime in our life, and that can happen anytime. So you have to keep in mind that spiritual experience is such a thing, it cannot be declared or announced on a fixed time. So the poet visited a place, so he had a kind of job there, but he did not know that he was going to have a kind of spiritual experience. So this is all about the poem. I think all of you have understood this, that when I set out for Lyonnesse, so I returned to my own place with a kind of spiritual experience or spiritual enlightenment. So you have to keep in mind particularly these two terms, that is spiritual experience or spiritual enlightenment.